Every day feels a little more ominous. Every day the relationship feels a little more broken and busted. We got problems here with Russell Wilson in Seattle.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like it's going to just go away with a conversation between Russell Wilson and the head coach and the general manager, maybe even the ownership structure. I mean, who knows what's going to happen here, BT? But Russell Wilson he can't look, I understand his frustration. And if I was him and I'm seeing great quarterbacks around the NFL get teams built around them, and they have all the pieces that they need, and it feels like their legacies are getting improved every single year. Because remember, he pointed out, this is my legacy, right? As what you clearly know what he's focused on.
Yep.
You got Aaron Rodgers at 37, 38 years old, winning the league MVP. It just feels like everybody else is moving forward. Tom Brady winning championships at latter ages, and Russell Wilson's kind of stuck, right? And if you go back and you look at the last couple of years, haven't they all felt the same, right? They all feel like the same thing happens. Russell Wilson has a quasi MVP type season, or at least half of it, starting or ending, whichever one you want to pick. But the team is never quite good enough to be really viable for a championship. And if you're Russell Wilson, you're kind of tired of it, right? It's like, dude, how long am I going to stay on this hamster wheel before we actually start, creating a winner around me, who I've been paid $100 and whatever million over his career?
But the only difference is that this year, I could attribute a lot of their failures to Russell Wilson.
Good point.
That's what's different about this year.
That's true. Because every other year it was, their defense isn't quite right.
Yep.
They don't have a running game.
Yep.
Dude, they got a good receiver in Tyler Lockett, but that's it. And
correct.
I mean, who else? Who else are you scared for in that offense? So, yeah, you're right, BT. That's the one difference, which makes it really interesting that he chose this year to start chirping about it.
That's true.
And if I'm the Seattle Seahawks, I think I'm very heavily saying to him, look in the mirror, Russ. Look in the mirror.
Well, that's what we said. Yes, that's for sure. Yeah. You don't know how they'll handle their franchise quarterback. I don't know. I don't know how Russ takes criticism. I remember back in the day when a totally different sport, but similar players actually. I think you'll like this. You look at Derek Jeter and Russell Wilson, right?
Yeah.
And both were basically flawless on the field and spotless off the field. And I remember when they went for that last contract with Derek, and Cashman was like, hey, listen, this is when the defensive metrics were really, really first starting to be thrown around, and they pointed out his lack of quickness, and suddenly balls he used to get to with his eyes shut, they're finding the outfield grass instead of his mitt, and Jeter harbored real resentment to the point where it fractured their relationship, and it was never the same. Now I don't know, is Russell Wilson a similar type of person? It might be. He might be. He's been very private up until the last year or so. But then again, when Derek was playing, there wasn't Instagram. But I still sense, even if there was, I still think Derek would have been detached from that for the most part. I do.
Yeah, DJ was in the cut, man.
DJ was doing his thing. DJ was legendary.
Yes, it's low-key legendary.
Yeah, leaving baskets in the limo. That's about as legendary as it gets.
Oh, champ.
Ding dong, who is it? It's somebody new, I'm sure. But with Russell Wilson, I don't know how he would this is a guess. I think that he would be turned off, very offended, and almost redirect any honest critiques that come his way. I believe that. I can't prove it.
He would talk his way around it, you mean?
And then kind of reposition it and put it at somebody else's doorstep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you think that that's a fair instinct?
I don't know. Because here's the thing, BT. Quarterbacks, like when they've really achieved and they are top line, and they're confident in that, they know it, everybody else around them knows it, the Tom Brady's of the world, the Aaron Rodgers of the world, you have the success, the MVPs, anything you need to back it up, right? Criticism doesn't bother you at all, because you see it as a catalyst to make you better, or a fault that you can somehow fix. But I don't know. I don't get the sense with Russ. Like I can't get a sense with Russ how he would react to criticism. And I think that may be the biggest issue. Is now we're starting to hear some criticism for Russell Wilson, really for the first time in a really long time. We know he's an overachiever, right? When he came out of college and he was a 4th-round draft pick, and who was the guy that they paid out there? I can't remember. They gave him a bunch of money.
Not Cobb.
No, the quarterback.
No, I know. Not Cobb's an old quarterback too.
Yeah.
What are those guys who banked and did nothing?
And
he won the job first.
Matt Flynn. Oh, thank you, D-Cell. But Matt Flynn, Russell Wilson was just like, all right, maybe we'll try something on this kid, right? And he overachieved. And coming out of camp, we started hearing, Russell Wilson's going to win this job.
Yep.
Russell Wilson's going to be the starting quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. And I remember at the time saying, oh, that's a cool story. Lower 2nd-round draft pick from Wisconsin, baseball player. I mean, we're going to have a couple, decent years. Matt Flynn just isn't good enough. We kind of knew that already. But, Russell Wilson, he'll be in the league for a couple years, and then they'll draft somebody else in the 1st round, and that'll be their guy. Now, here we are, 9 years later, and Russell Wilson has been a stud, and he's trending, even though he's got work to do, to be in a Hall of Fame quarterback, right? He's already got the huge contract and, the persona and the accolades and the prestige of being a superstar in the NFL. But what has he actually done? Right? When you go back and look at it, other than win that one Super Bowl, which a lot of people will credit to the run game and the defense.
Yeah.
And so he's at that point where if he wants to be viewed in this category with Aaron Rodgers of the world and the Tom Brady's of the world, he's got to be able to lift teams, not just like statistically, but to success in the postseason. And he hasn't done that yet. And now he's chirping about it because he knows he hasn't done that yet. But he's pointing blame to other places other than looking at himself.
Which is why I don't think, back to my original point, how I don't think he handles criticism very well. Because I think it takes a very aloof or overly egotistical, and I'm not trying to really come that hard on Russell with that, but I just can't think of a better way to frame it.
Yeah.
When you are that public and you shade your teammates that effortlessly, multiple times, by the way.
Yeah.
And in the ensuing days have not done anything to say, wow, it came out wrong. That's not what I meant. These are my guys. I mean, this started Tuesday with Dan Patrick. Again, what day is it? It's Thursday. And here we are, and every day it feels a little more fractured, as I said to start the show. Now, listen. The one thing about greatness, you talk about Aaron Rodgers and that legacy and the aspect of that, and he's inherently aware of it, and he should be, because as we've said a few times on the show, we shove it down their throat.
Yep.
You only have one chance. 2 years in, could he be the GOAT? I mean, some of the conversations we have, really, if you think about it, are the height of stupidity. I mean, and I'm throwing myself in there. But the difference with Russell, and this is where I will really have his back, not this year, because he faded and he played poorly the final 8 games, but you talk about championships and to contextualize his career, I do believe that he has, to me, he elevated them just to merely get to 12-4.
I hear what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Now, we'll look at it and say, oh, you lost the home game to the Rams. I mean, you didn't do anything this year. Okay, if you want to look at it that way, that's the end result. You got bounced at home early. You were favored by 2 or 3 points, whatever it was, a nominal number. You can certainly position that as a game you maybe were kind of supposed to win, even though we both picked the Rams. But the point is that I think there were a lot of years in Seattle where he elevated them into the meaningful part of the conversation when they had no business being there.
They just aren't good enough.
Yes. So I'm going to give him all that credit and all the props he deserves there. And also, when you're backed up by the stat, and this is a fact, that nobody in NFL history has won more games at the quarterback position in their first 9 years in the NFL, That encompasses a lot of great players and a lot of years. And that statistic is Russell Wilson.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I agree with you, BT. People are starting to speculate, could they move on from him? They're not. That is not going to happen.
Oh, well, by the way, I disagree, but by all means, go ahead.
There is no way the Seattle Seahawks, unless they see themselves going into a rebuild, there's no way, and I don't see that right now. I see them trying to find solutions to their issues more as a better path towards a Super Bowl or a deep playoff run, whatever you want to say. Because Super Bowl is obviously, it's very tough, but still a deep playoff run. It is much more plausible that they do it with Russell Wilson as their quarterback and accent their roster than to get rid of Russell Wilson and then bring in whoever it is they're going to bring in at quarterback and try to build around him. That the success of that, the likelihood of that being successful is very, very small. So I don't believe that they're trying at all to move Russell Wilson unless Russell Wilson goes to them and says, "This is done. I'm over. I'm out. I want to be somewhere more high profile, so me and my girl can, be, whatever, influencers around the world." The only way I see that happen is if Russell Wilson forces it, and I haven't heard that yet.
I haven't heard that either. But
so
again,
I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think Seattle is going to preemptively say, "Russell, you pissed us off. We got to get rid of you." I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So that's not going to happen.
I agree with that. That's where I'm going to stop short of saying where it's completely untenable. But I believe, and somebody else asserted this, I don't know who it was. I would tell you, I just honestly don't recall. But as soon as I saw, I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. Where because Russell Wilson, like Jeter, is very choreographed in what he puts out there for public consumption. Everything with Jeter was relative. Now, last year or so, Russ has feeling himself in a way that, and that's fine. But Derek never really quite was that emboldened to, open up his shirt and, loosen up a button and let the hair down. He was always very corporate, very prepackaged, and it worked for Derek. And I don't think it's a far deviation from his character. I think he's one of the certainly great players, but one of the great people in the game of baseball. No, that's not like an act. Derek's a pure guy. And I think Russell Wilson is too. But I also think that Russell Wilson's greasing the skids for the easiest exit. Because, Teak, I keep going back to this. This happened on Tuesday. All he had to do was whomever he trusts the most, whether it's somebody with the NFL Network, with ESPN, somebody with CBS, somebody on a local radio station, a PR company, whomever, you plant the one seed and you completely redirect the narrative. Crickets.
Yeah.
Crickets. He's letting it blow up.
Well, let's dig into it then, because I think the reality of any human in a professional setting that is becoming unfulfilling is that you're gonna start peaking, right? You're gonna start saying, "Well, it might be better over there." I mean, it's not ideal, but man, that would be a great challenge. And he looks at what Tom Brady just did, and he looks at Matt Stafford getting a rebirth, is the best way to put it, from being in Detroit for all those years. He's getting a rebirth now to go play in Los Angeles with the #1 defense in football and the defensive player of the year and Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey backing him up. And you got some good players on the offensive side as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like for Matt Stafford, he's got to feel like, man, this is Christmas, right? Every day is Christmas for me in LA. And so we're seeing it, right? And it's so new to us because quarterbacks don't do that. And for the last couple of years, we've seen movement with the quarterback position. And Russell Wilson, in his heart of hearts, as much as he wants to be a Seahawk for life, and he'd stand up in front of a crowd at a pep rally and say,
"Go Hawks!
I'll go Hawks! I'm a Seahawks with 12 man. I love you guys. This is all us." Right? And somewhere in his mind, he's looking at these other quarterbacks who are migrating to different locations and finding success and saying, maybe. So I will give you that. But I will stand by it, and I'll keep saying it. The Seattle Seahawks, in no way are they going to find success by getting rid of Russell Wilson. They could be in for a long rebuild because we already know that their team is compromised, right? That's what we've been talking about for 2 or 3 years. So if they move on from Russell Wilson, the best player on the team right now, they're going to be in some trouble.
But Teague, I'm going to disagree again. And again, we are on the same page. I do not believe that Seattle is initiating conversations, we actively want to deal Russell. Phone rings, we'll pick it up, we'll do business. Sure, it's due diligence, but I believe that the seeds are being planted behind the scenes by Russell's camp and Russell, not Seattle. Having said that, they put themselves in a very precarious spot, and I know that I've brought him up a lot because he used to play for my team. When you trade 2 number 1 picks for a safety who can't cover, and Jamal Adams is a great in-the-box safety. He's great. He's a disruptor. Set the single-season sack record for safeties. But he's a liability in the pass, right? Mm-hmm. But when you give up 2 first-round picks, you almost have to re-sign him. You almost have to. Yeah. Otherwise, you look inept because you didn't win like you made. If they would have won the championship then not not re-sign him, but you got the championship. Hey, you know what? Validates the move. We got Jamal. We got the chip. Boom. We're not paying him $16 million. He can move on. But because you didn't win, now you're still chasing it, and now you're still chasing your tail. You gave up the premium equity to the Jets. 2, not 1, 2 first-round picks. So now I believe they're going to have to pay Jamal Adams to save face. And when you do that and you look at Russell Wilson taking up about 20% of the salary cap, to me, the actual best move to move forward would be to trade Russell Wilson, honestly, and get a younger quarterback or draft somebody or whatever.
And do what? That's just hard,
Take
man.
Derek Carr for a little less money, see what happens, and then move on.
Oh, I don't know about that one,
But
man.
they didn't win with Russ.
I hear you.
And they're not winning next year.
No, they haven't, and they won't because it's the NFC in particular is getting better.
That's right.
Right? They're not standing still. I mean, the Bucs are trying to figure out how they can upgrade. They want to bring in Odell Beckham Jr.
And Adrian Peterson said he wants to jump in for the ride.
Right?
Don't we all, AP?
Exactly.
Don't we all, buddy?
Let me cherry pick a championship on Tom Brady's coattails before he retires.
Oh, my God. By the way, how do you think Tommy's feeling today with that hangover?
It's only a little bit of avocado vodka, avocado tequila.
I like
just a couple of avocados.
Just a couple shots. I like drunk Tom Brady.
Dude, he was.
All right, Teak. We both agree that Seattle is not initiating trade talks here.
No.
I believe a little bit more, though you certainly give it some credence as well, that it's not unfathomable to think that Russell Wilson is dealt.
Yeah.
Based on his own unhappiness or motivation, correct?
Yes.
Fair assertion? Okay.
Yes.
So with that being said, we know there's a lot of names out there, and it looks like the Houston Texans very well might be prepared to play a long game of chicken with Watson. If they eventually deviate from that stance, and I still think they're going to have to because Watson's not going to crack, I don't think, and you need a quarterback, and you know who the teams are, there's a 7-year gap in age. The money favors Wilson in terms of more right now. The cap hit for Deshaun is very favorable early. What would you do? I mean, how aggressively would you pursue either?
I think it depends on your circumstance. So if I'm a team it's almost, or at least feels like I'm the quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl, I might be inclined to go with Russell Wilson, simply because you know that he's got playoff experience. He's won a Super Bowl, and through no fault of his own, should have had a second Super Bowl. And he is a natural leader. We talked about this the other day, and we were kind of joking about it. BT, he's a little bit corny, but that's okay.
That's fine.
That's it's not something that matters necessarily, as long as you're real with the guys. And on game day, they know that you're making them better and putting them in positions to win. And there is nobody that can tell you that Russell Wilson hasn't done that with every snap of his career in the NFL. Like, he's never been a liability. You talked about it off the field and getting in trouble and all that stuff. He's really never been a liability on the field for an extended period of time. Obviously, every guy has a bad game and throws 2 or 3 interceptions.
But he's a Hall of Famer, man.
Exactly, man. He is steady, Eddie. You're getting the same thing, and it's confounding. You're like, dude, how did he do that? But he does it consistently, so you got to believe that he's going to continue to do it consistently. So if I'm a team that's right on the verge of being championship viable, and I just think my quarterback doesn't have what it takes to get it done, I'd go Russell Wilson. Now, if I think we are 2 or 3 years away from that, and I need someone to lift some, not inferior, because that's just insulting, but you know what I mean, like less than Pro Bowl quality players to a different height, that's when I would go Deshaun Watson because he could grow with them together. So I think the circumstance of the team matters more than anything, and that's really what these conversations come down to.
Okay.
No different than Tom Brady as he's looking, into potential free agency 2 years ago. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they stand out. Why? Because they got tons of talent on both sides of the football and give him the best chance to win a championship.
Let me give you 4 teams. All right. They're not all in the same tier, varying degrees of readiness, if you will, in terms of really being in the mix for the Lombardi. But you can make a case that all of these teams deserve to be thrown out right now. You ready?
Go ahead.
And 2 are obvious. Well, one's definitely obvious, and the other couple aren't. Number 1 would be the Colts. That's the obvious one. We didn't need to waste time on that. We know what to try to do. Try to get Wentz, reunited with Reich. If not, you're not going to trade Watson in the division. Could you make a play for Wilson? Yeah, of course. If you get him, you're probably in the Super Bowl. Colts are a no-brainer. Number 2, Washington football team. We all position them as a team that, I mean, I know they just signed Kid Hinkle. They got about $8 million, which is good for him, the way he played in that wild card game, diving for the pylon and showing some spark. But you're probably going to need a little more than that. But still, Washington's a team that you get the right quarterback play and you have a decent draft. One more offensive weapon, they're right there. Now, here's a wild card team. You ready? Mm-hmm. The Panthers. And the reason I say the Panthers, we know we had DJ Moore on the show the other day. We know McCaffrey's coming back. We know that Robbie Anderson had a good first year in Carolina. They are a good offensive team. Derek Brown was a terrific top 10 pick. Jeremy Chin was an outstanding draft pick. They popped on a few of those defensive players, all right? To me, if you put Russell Wilson in Carolina, you got something.
Yeah, maybe, but I think they're more in my Deshaun Watson category. Like, I think they're a year or two or 2 or 3 years away, as opposed to next year or a year, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense, but let me throw this. I agree with that, by the way. I totally agree with that. But what if Houston really digs in and doesn't trade him?
Yeah.
And you can't get Watson. Would you go get Russell Wilson?
Okay. No, there's no doubt about it.
All right.
But if I had the choice, I mean, you position this as give me a choice. If both of them are available and I have a choice, if I'm Carolina, look, first of all, you got to go through Tampa still. And now they got some free agents. What are they going to do with talking about Tampa? What are they going to do with Chris Godwin, who I think he might end up, unfortunately, being priced out of staying.
I'll take him on the Jets. Come on over, Chris.
Or they might franchise him.
Let's go.
By the way, you know what I heard today about the Jets?
Juju. Yeah, I don't know.
Want that?
Sure. No, I'm not loving that, to be honest with you. I'd rather have Allen Robinson or Chris Godwin than Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah. I read that today. I was like,
I saw that. Don't love it. Well, I'd even rather have Galladay. I'd rather have Juju like 5th out of all of them.
There's a bunch of free agent wide receivers, by the way.
Yep.
But I think Tampa's going to have a hard time hanging on to Chris Godwin. But Scotty Miller's a good player, right? AB you could sign for much less. Obviously, Mike Evans is there, and Cameron Brate, and O.J. Howard will be healthy next year, and Gronk. They're going to have tons of weapons. So, but it's really, you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're going to be the best team in the division again, or second best team last year, but they're going to be the best team in the division next year, especially with the Saints transitioning quarterbacks.
Yep, I agree.
But you got to believe the Saints, who had one of the top defenses in football, is still going to be one of the better teams. So I think Carolina has got a little bit of a rough is going to have a little bit of a rough time in their division. So I don't think they're ready yet to just say, all right, we're going to bring in Russell Wilson, this enormous cap hit, and, all that expectation when they're not ready for it. So to me, it's more Watson in Carolina than it would be Russell Wilson.
I got you. I'm not as sold on the Saints only because what if they trade Michael Thomas? What if Winston is not as refined in the listen, I think they'll be good.
Yeah. All he's got to do is not turn the ball over for Jameis Winston.
But we got to see that happen
I
before
agree.
we actually say that it's going to,
It's like, he's going to be fantastic. He just can't turn the ball over.
And he might be.
He had 35 last year.
We got to see it before we just say, this is the new Jameis Winston. All right, I got you. And the other team was the Bears, and we all know that they need an upgrade, probably more in the market for Wentz. But those were 4 teams I wanted to throw at you. And obviously, this is fluid. It would not stun me if we wake up one day and Lock and 4, who's been all over this Wilson stuff. Good job, Jay. Or somebody else, Schefter, whomever's, it's a bomb, where like so-and-so just acquired Russell. That would not stun me. Now, the team, depending on what team it is, that could stun me. But would I be stunned if Russell Wilson is dealt? I would not be stunned.
Yeah, so you gave me the Colts, the Washington football team, the Panthers, and the Bears.
Those were the 4.
The Colts, I would go Wilson. The Washington probably Wilson, but that's a either or, Wilson and Watson. But
I agree with that.
The last two, the Panthers and the Bears, I think that's both Watsons.
Okay. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.